I've seen a lot of people use one-hot encoding. I think it's also called as dummy variable encoding. Perhaps you must have heard about it. That is one way to, handle seasonality. Of course, you're right that, ARIMA does not implicitly handle seasonality, and hence people resort to one-hot encoding and all that. In my field of market mix modeling, we were using one-hot encoding, or most of the vendors still do. But we, devised a new mechanism to handle seasonality, and we started using something known as radial basis function, which is along the lines of, the sine and the cosine wave. Why do you think this would be better than, just a dummy variable encoding?
Very much depends on the granularity, on the temporal granularity that your data is on. So assume you have daily data, right? So you have total sales or whatever demand consumption on per day. And you want to model date of year seasonality. People might put in dummies for the month. So there's one dummy for January, one for February, and so on and so forth. I would not consider that good practice. Why? What does that mean? That gives you, once you look at the forecast or even the in-sample fit, that gives you a seasonal component that is flat in January, then jumps on the 1st of February down here or somewhere else, and then jumps again for March. So in my opinion, neither makes sense to say it's going to be flat. The seasonal component will be flat on January. That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense to say it's going to jump abruptly on the 1st of February. And that's exactly what you get in dummy encoding. Daily data with month of year dummies. And of course, the same if you have hourly data and do daily encoding and so on and so forth. And so I would not do that. I would always use some kind of transformation of the day of year, and radial basis functions are a wonderful example of that, or sines and cosines, or other kinds of splines. So there's so many different things. Actually, we're going to put a link to one cross-validated thread on that into the description. And it, again, it's an art. It all depends. So if you have a situation where you have retail sales, for instance, if you're a supermarket, then it might certainly make sense to have dummies for the day of week, to say Monday, Tuesday, and so on, because the day of weeks actually do happen differently. And since few people go shopping at night, we typically don't really care about what's happening at night, these jumps between the days make more sense. And Friday and the weekend is qualitatively different from the day of weekend. There actually is a jump in customer behavior between Sunday and Monday. And so here it makes sense to have dummies. And in other cases too, if you have regulatory changes that might give you a structural break where things actually jump from one day to the next, by all means include a dummy there. Even then, it doesn't always make sense because people anticipate regulatory changes and they already change their behavior way before the change happens. But yeah, so dummies can make sense if used sparingly. I think they are overused, and I still see papers where people will use dummies, and it always makes me a little sad.